Out of all of the Switch 2 launch titles, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma was one of the most interesting ones. As a game, it's a perfectly fine take on farming simulators, with multiple innovations that make it one of the better ones that I've played. As a spin-off to the already niche Rune Factory series, I've seen a lot of people overlook this game. Sadly, that is undeserved. While very flawed, Guardians of Azuma is a fantastic farming sim, with an amazing Japanese flair fleshed deeply into the very fabric of the game. While nothing is jaw-dropping in Guardians of Azuma, each element from the combat to the narrative are all good enough, and once everything comes together, you're left with a quality game. Rune Factory as a series is to Story of Seasons or Harvest Moon what modern Final Fantasy is to classic PS1 JRPGs. Fundamentally, they're similar games in similar genres, sharing a similar development staff or publisher, with basically identical plotlines and structure, but both revitalize the genre they're in. Rune Factory has always been a series of farming games with a heavier focus on combat, while most of the games in this genre are life sims first. Story of Seasons has some rudimentary action, and the newer Harvest Moon games do too. This series instead focuses on combat and JRPG mechanics primarily, and Guardians of Azuma is no different. Except this time, the focus on combat is even stronger than any other prior release, largely due to the shift in style. It's safe to call Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma an action RPG with decent farming elements as opposed to a farming game with light action elements. Like the typical JRPG, and even traditional farming sim, there's leveling, upgradable weapons, scaling difficulty, bosses, and a basic story structure about saving the world. But unlike those games, the farming, or grinding, of Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma can be completely automated. Villagers are able to do all the work the player would have, though I still did most of it myself. But after a few days in one village and a little story progression, every task can be successfully completed without any player involvement, so one can do what they choose to do, be it getting through the story, engaging in combat, or romance quest lines. There's a sense of player freedom by removing arguably the biggest barrier of entry to this genre. I do enjoy farming simulators. I usually play one game per year. From a Story of Seasons game, an older Harvest Moon, the brilliant Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, and the phenomenal Stardew Valley. Even Square Enix's extremely underrated Harvestella. Those are some of the games in this genre I've played, beaten, or by all means enjoyed. My favorite farming games tend to be ones with extra elements in them. Sakuna of Rice and Ruin is a very in-depth rice farming simulator, with gorgeous graphics and a different style of fun side-scrolling combat. Harvestella is basic in many ways, but Square Enix's flair sells the game. The story was memorable, the crystally colors and all else gave it a very interesting appeal. Stardew Valley is in many ways the ultimate farming game, successfully replicating what makes the classics of the genre their greatest. However, in spite of my experience with the genre, I've never personally played a Rune Factory game. They've been on my bucket list, and I meant to buy them during various sales over the years, but for some reason, never wound up getting one. That was until Marvelous were one of the sole two third-party developers publishing proper physicals for the Switch 2 at launch, which was the platform I played the game on. I picked up Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma for around $80 after tax, which was $20 off the launch price. My copy was from GameStop and used, but hadn't been opened, and was sold at a slight discount. I say this to preface everything I'll be talking about later in this review. I bought it for a slight sale, and while I thoroughly enjoyed what I played at that price, I would suggest that you buy it on sale too. Developed and published by Marvelous Inc., Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is good, but suffers in the same way many other Marvelous games do. They excel at underrated Japanese releases with cult audiences, but many of their games suffer from the same problems, and Guardians of Azuma is no different. Still, the game is good, even with the traditional issues of the studio. While they are frequently annoying, the glitches, graphical problems, and poppin' did not take away too much from my experience. Guardians of Azuma is almost identical to other comparable farming games. Plant crops in a village, water them daily, and then sell for a profit. Unlike most though, this one doesn't restrict which crops can be planted when or where, and their growth can be spread out daily, two very helpful quality of life features. This game has 4 villages, each representing a season, so instead of planting something once a year, they're plantable forever in the respective village. The game has a spring village, which you start with, then comes summer, autumn, and lastly a winter one, all of which have multiple development plots to set farms up. Each different location has their own semi-open area to explore, grind out quests, and do enemy encounters. They also have their own unique NPCs and fleshed out storylines. Outside of the village, there's the traditional season-based calendar, although without planting seasons it means nothing outside of important dates related to festivals and characters. Machines may steal the jobs of everyone in the future, but in this Rune Factory game, villagers bear the burden of hard work. If you don't enjoy chopping trees or hitting rocks, then make some villagers do that. Want to generate passive income? Create some shops and put that shopkeeper to the task. They can also water, harvest, and plant crops, along with tending to various animals and other creatures. The villagers are the biggest quality of life improvement in any farming game, and for a genre that's often viewed as repetitive, they take away most of that criticism. Villagers don't just tend to the land, or plant, They also are fully capable of selling the various items they produce, which means that all of the player's focus can be put to the story and questlines if they so choose. On the Switch 2 are also mouse controls, which allow for dropping plots of land anywhere with the use of a Joy-Con. Watering in a farming sim has never been faster, same for harvesting. It's a really helpful feature to have while playing portable. If my crops had grown, I would put the Switch into tabletop mode, put a Joy-Con face down and quickly harvest, water, and replant every seed. You can also make the game top down to place anything with better guidance. Every single development zone allows the player the utmost of freedom, and each can be made however they want. I made some tightly designed villages, others full of trees to farm lumber, and all of them had some sort of soil to grow crops. If you're playing farming games for the farming part, or the community building, you will love Guardians of Azuma. And if you play the genre for the other elements, you likely will love the game too. The combat in Guardians of Azuma is addictive. In many ways it's basic, simple, and easy to understand, but it also feels good. Each new location scales with the player, meaning the game never gets easier. It always ramps up along with your knowledge of the game's systems. I don't know how I feel about that, but the player is able to master the game and create powerful weapons to negate the difficulty spikes as time goes on. During my playthrough, I stuck to a simple short sword and bow setup, though there are more options available, fancier ones and better choices, but in action games I'll usually stick to the traditional weaponry. The short sword can be charged, imbued with a flame, and attack with a short combo, while the bow can also do those same things. I think all the weapons in this game can be used in a similar way. Every side character will have their own specialties and use their specific equipped weapon exactly as the player does, though way slower in comparison. Aside from the two main weapons, there's also a weapon wheel with unlockable special items that all have their own uses. Both in combat and out of combat, take a drum that can heal the player or advance the life of a crop by 1 day, a sword that harvests crops as seeds or slashes enemies with fire. There's countless others and they are all different. The best is easily the fan, which with upgrades to the skill tree can increase the speed of running. It is a night and day difference once unlocked. The other ones aren't exactly game changing, though they each tie into the story nicely. No matter what, combat is fun, and the dodge in particular is awesome. Dodging an enemy at the right moment, going into slow motion, charging 2 equally devastating slashes, and piercing off the enemy or boss's health feels rewarding. Boss battles are also pretty good here. None are incredibly amazing or life-changing, but they present a fair challenge with an often fun gimmick. Take shooting arrows into a giant tree for example, just fun to do. The player's party during combat consists of 3 other people, plus a few on reserve after getting further into the game. Each one is unique, some are more defensive while others are better at healing. Creating a party is decent work, but the proper matching can go a long way at making gameplay flow better. Later on, the player gains the ability to include animals in their party, which is what allows for mountable companions. In Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, the graphics are perfectly fine. They don't scream next-gen or even cross-gen. In fact, they're kind of unoriginal and look like many other games. But the graphics have a nice little flair to them, that flair being the Japanese influence. While I like the graphics, and more precisely the art style, Guardians of Azuma is extremely glitchy in the visual department, such as the constant pop-in on hardware that shouldn't have any. This isn't a Switch 2 level issue, it seems like the problem is in every version, including while playing on Steam Deck. The worst example of graphical glitches or pop-in are the frog statues, where their textures always load in much later than the flat model. No matter how long I've played, this is alarmingly choppy each time. The framerate runs smoothly, aside from whenever you load or teleport into a different area, as all of the models load alongside the player. The whole game gets choppy for a short few seconds. These are consistent in most Marvelous games I've played. Their games are made on small budgets, and the studio doesn't have the money of the biggest Japanese publishers, so they often have little imperfections. Though the price of Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma should invalidate that. There is no world where a full-price game on a next-gen platform with microtransactions and an upgrade fee for the last-gen version should have any of these problems, and yet it does. Guardians of Azuma takes place in Azuma, as you may have guessed, starring either Subaru, like the car, or Kaguya, though names can be personalized and changed. They purify the land of the Blight, restoring power to various gods and goddesses. The story is simple, but it's good enough. There are twists and turns, some interesting characters, and many hilarious moments in the game. Everything is fine, nothing special, but also nothing terrible. The voice acting is also fine, so are the cutscene animations. Where the game does shine are in its characters. They're almost all romanceable, and even if you choose not to date them, they have some nice personal quest lines that expand upon the lore of Azuma. Some characters come from outside of this realm, and their insights into the happenings of the world are simply interesting. The character designs are amazing, and by far some of the best in the series. Many side characters do look bland, but the gods and goddesses have all been intricately designed and modeled, with a styling that fits perfectly to their season. The best examples of the design matching the location has to be a white wolf god for the winter or a bright and bouncy woman for the spring. Overall, each god or goddess matches the environment of their village. During my playthrough, I played as Subaru and romanced Iroha. Marriage unlocks close to the end, while starting a family is the only boon of the post-credits grind. Nothing special unlocks after beating the game. A few more characters join the world, and you can continue to level up seasonal villages. But that's not real post-game content, and for a game in this genre, you'd expect so much better. In many ways, Rune Factory Gardens of Azuma is a decent game, but to me, the package was so fun, so enjoyable, that I really liked it. Yes, it has the typical Marvelous isms and indefensible graphical problems, but I found the game charming. The story is entertaining, the farming mechanics are great, and the characters are interesting. Really, what more is there to want in a farming simulator? As a spin-off to Rune Factory, I'm glad I played through to the end. And even longer after I finished it. Let me know what you thought about the game if you've played it. What were your impressions of it? Thanks for watching. Any engagement with the video helps, so leave a like, comment for the algorithm, subscribe to my channel for more. Click on the videos on screen now, and I hope you have a great day.